Here are some reasons why I will never regret having children. First and foremost, I want to say that America is extremely anti-children as well as anti-family. So some of the reasons that I wanted to have children was, one, I wanted to just have a child. I love children, and I just wanted to have my own family when I became an adult. Two, I wanted to continue my lineage for my family, because we are a very family-oriented family. Three, everyone in my family has children, and that was just something I felt like I wanted to do. I never was like, oh, I hate kids so much, I just don't want to even have them. I just never saw that even as an option. Just as young as I can remember, I wanted to have children as long as I can remember. I didn't like kids at first when I was a teenager, because I didn't understand them. But then once I had my cousin, she was born as a preemie. She was so small, but she was so cute. I instantly fell in love with her, and I guess my experience and relationship with her allowed me to see how children really are, and we just had such a special bond. And so, yeah, I just loved her to pieces. So I was I just always loved kids. I think the other reason why, once you have children, I feel like a lot of people don't want to have children because they don't have a plan. And people are, so I definitely feel like people should not have children just for the sake of having children. And so I felt even as a teenager, I already knew I need to have something planned for these children. My family has always been kind of driven. Everyone's is prior military or working for the government or private sector in a pretty professional area. And so I felt I never imagined children to be a burden. This is not how I was raised to think about family and having children. The mindset of a lot of child-free people doesn't really surprise me. They're very self-absorbed, selfish, very materialistic, and those are the things they attribute to why they're not having kids. I personally think a lot of it is because they can't have kids, and they're having all this bravado and not really wanting to admit that or be vulnerable. And also there's almost a lashing out to parents out of anger that parents are able to be parents and they are not able to be parents for whatever reason, and so they're attacking parents, which is not okay. So I created this channel literally just to have a voice and debunk a lot of the myths and a lot of the untruths that are being passed around the internet and social media. So my benefits for having children, besides just wanting a child, because I just love children, as I got older, my family was split up a lot, really split up in the country, around the country and the world, because we're all military. So the next reason why I wanted to have a lot of children was I thought about this quote that Angelina Jolie said once, and she was always been one of my favorite actresses, and she said that she wanted to have a lot of children to kind of create her own family, because she really didn't have a lot of family to begin with. And I feel I was feeling that way too. My mom and dad did not really stay connected to, well, they didn't really introduce us and have us connecting to our extended family members. So even though we have a lot of family members, we just never grew up knowing them. And so it was always just really the nucleus family, the immediate family, and then maybe some outliers, my mom's sisters and their kids, or my dad. It just was a very small. And so I was I just really want to have a larger family. I want to bring more people into our small family. So that was one of my benefits to having children, is expanding the family overall. I don't think I thought too heavily about like, oh, I need to continue the lineage, but that was primarily one of the reasons too. I just felt like it was like a duty that I never really gave much thought to, was that it's my duty of this family to continue the lineage like everyone else has done. We don't have anyone in our family that doesn't have children that I know of, even if it's just like one child. Like everyone has a child, at least one at minimum, and everybody's happy with their children. I've never heard anyone ever complain about like, why did I ever have kids? Like, I'm not saying like people are every day is perfect, but no one's life is perfect, whether you have children or not. So of course you're going to have parents who might have a bad day with their child and just be like, ugh, like what was I thinking? But you get over it and you forge on. And one reason why I feel like parents get over it is because some people may say it's because we don't have a choice, but we do. I mean, you've seen crappy parents out there, so I mean, you definitely have a choice. But if you're a good parent, a good person, you will get over yourself, and you do realize your child is a whole human being. So I think it's interesting how people can treat strangers better than they treat their own family members. I always thought that was very interesting. Like, and it's like, oh, you're my family, I could just treat you like trash, and that's just not cute. It's like, you should be treating your family better than you would treat a stranger who has done nothing for you, owes you, like, they're not going to be any benefit to your life, never was a benefit to your life. And so why are you, crapping on people who've been there for you all this time and then treating strangers like gold? It's absolutely ridiculous when I see it happening. So that was like another thing. Just wanted to expand my family, wanted to continue the lineage of my family name, of my family bloodline, and just do my part. And then if you want to go bigger, I would say I wanted to like continue the human race, continue the black race, because that's my race, obviously. And I just felt like I was doing my part. So it just felt like something that I was almost like obligated to do, I would say, but it never felt like an obligation. I was honored, if I could really say the word. It's like I'm honored to be chosen to have this job. Like, I absolutely love being a mother, and like I said, I've always wanted to be one. So it was really never a thought to me about like just not having kids at all. That was never even a thought. The next benefit I would say to having children, they're so funny, so much love. OMG, like it's like a love you're never gonna understand. The bond is so strong. My children are very protective of me. I actually have all boys. I don't have any daughters, and they are very protective of me, just like I'm very protective of them. And so you definitely have like that strong bond. You have people who in this world who give a shit about you. Like, if something were to happen to you, you're not going to be missing for like a week and nobody notices. Like, I know there's probably cases out there where that happens, so whenever, but you're least likely to be alone in the world and just forgotten than people who never had children. Because another thing I noticed, so this flowed into another reason I see a benefit to having children, is as I got older, I realized like a lot of people grow apart from their friends from high school. And so at the end of the day, all you have is family. So like, it's not like you're doing it on purpose, but people's lives change, their priorities change, everything changes after high school. You're going off into a new world as an adult to go find yourself and find your purpose. And I had great friends, but our priorities are definitely different the older we got. And plus, our commitments were different. I mean, everybody started creating their own families, and I had my own family. So it was never like a moment where I'm like, oh, I miss my friends. I don't have anyone to hang out with because everyone has kids, and I'm single with no kids. Like, I just never thought about it. It was like, everyone has kids. That's awesome. So we would go to each other's kids' birthday parties, and we would just do a lot of things with our kids. And it was just amazing, because it's like, one minute we were the kids in school growing up together, and now our children are like playing. So it was like so awesome to see that happen. And just basically that kind of ties into the whole like next generation thing, like creating the next generation of people. One myth I like to debunk is when people say like the world's overpopulated. That doesn't make sense. And I don't think people who don't have kids really give a shit that the world's overpopulated or that the world is being destroyed, because when they name all the consumption that they plan on doing, or that they are currently doing or have done in the past, it's like you don't seem like you're really concerned about your footprint, your carbon footprint, or the damage you're doing to Mother Earth. So miss me with it. I really don't want to hear that lie be told over and over. Another thing I like to debunk is the weird comment that everyone goes with. It's like, I'd rather have children. I'd rather not have kids and regret it than to have kids and regret it. And I'm just like, give me a break. Like, again, that's a maturity thing. Most people are not going to have children and regret it. They're just not. I think, like, biologically it's like impossible to regret it. And there's people that come on there and comment and be like, yeah, you're so right, like, don't have kids, it's the worst. I feel sorry for their children. Like, I really deeply pray for these babies that they are covered by God, because to have a parent that's openly just admitting they hate you or they regret having, it's just like so heartbreaking. And I'm just like, imagine once more, because America creates a lot of narcissists. So I think people are like incapable or just don't even think about putting themselves in the shoes of their child. Would you want your parents online talking about how much they hate you and how much they wish they wouldn't have had you and they regret it? It's the worst thing that ever happened in their lives. And if they're doing that, then that explains a lot. That explains why you're that person. But if they're not and they had you, they gave you a good life. I mean, I see a lot of entitlement into Gen Z. I think millennials are like the last normal generation to go outside and grow up without technology, really, like, computers and phones and all that jazz. So we're like probably the last set of people that are down to earth, I would say, like just down to earth, just normal, like into basic things like going outside to ride a bike and play, just normal stuff. So I do feel like Gen Zers, the younger millennials probably grew up in a even more self-absorbed way than they were before. So anyways, I think there's like a disconnect there. People don't really know what to be honoring and respecting and valuing. So that's that. It's like really awful. So like another reason I had children benefits is the holidays. So the holidays are coming up and I love this time of year now. I used to hate this time of year, unless I was like a kid and Christmas is coming or whatever. But like when I was a younger person with no children yet and I was in the military and I was by myself away from my family, like I just hated the holidays. It was so depressing because I didn't have a family of my own yet, and I was just like, I miss my family, I'm homesick, or I just feel sad because I'm like in this world alone. That's what it felt like to me. And now that I have children, the house is filled with love and laughter and food cooking, smelling good, like cookies and stuffing and whatever else you're gonna make for the holidays. And it's just like so much joy. Like the joy is immense. I love being around my children. And I think people who pour into their children, they see more benefit than people who are just like, I don't know, very self-absorbed or negligent even. So the holidays, that's another reason. You're never going to be alone for the holidays. You have your kid or your kids to hang out with, and it's just like so much fun. We love watching movies together. We do like everything together, honestly. Like we'll go to museums, parks, playgrounds, pools. Like I want to travel with my kids. So like it's interesting because people will be like, oh, I'm dual income couple, or I don't have any kids, so I can go do this. They act like parents are like banned from the airport. It's just like really weird, It's like we're not banned. We are able to travel. We do travel. And it's kind of like the best of all worlds. Like you have your children, but you still get to live the same life as a childless person or child-free person. So yeah, actually, hopefully when you have a human, you'll like them and you'll want to spend as much time with them as you would your partner if you even have a partner. So whether you have a partner or not, you have your kids and they're fun, and I can't wait to like travel the world with them when they get a little bit older. We're actually learning French right now, so my goal was to go to Africa, and I know there's a lot of African countries that speak French, and then 2, go to Belgium. That's where my eldest child was born, and be able to fluently speak French with the locals. I just cannot wait. And yeah, I'm making like the whole house take French. I always wanted this to be bilingual. So my older sons probably won't get it right now, but they'll be with us. And my younger sons and me will know fluent in French, so we could just be their guides or whatever. So that's like another benefit. You just can travel, you can do things, you have someone to do things with. Another thing I think is interesting is a lot of people act like kids never grow up. Like they'll be like, I'm gonna get a dog. It's like, okay, your dog is not gonna bury you. Your dog is not gonna be ever able to cook you dinner or do anything for you. I mean, they have great guard. They can guard you probably if they're willing to do that. But there's just so many things that they cannot do that child can grow up and do. I also think it's really problematic how a lot of people just think kids should just exist, and that's not reality, right? I mean, why would you bring a human in this world and just have them just there? Everybody wants purpose, and if any parent knows, or anyone who's been around young children, but most parents know, children love to have a purpose. They love to help out. That's just innately within them. I mean, it's not until you get older that they kind of get lazy bones, but they're not necessarily even lazy then. It's just the stuff they want to do is different from what their parents want them to do. Like chores, they'd rather be out with their friends or something, or they'll work a whole lot at a part-time job because they're getting paid versus, cleaning up the house because they're not going to get paid by their parents. So their priorities kind of shift a little bit because they value money, obviously, like most teenagers do, especially in America. But when they're little, I mean, they love helping. So that's not really like it's weird, like that people think people should have kids and just have them there existing. And then they wonder why kids are so annoying at this point. Like, because then they grow up to be these annoying adults who don't like children anymore, even though they were once a kid. They don't like humans. They're just there annoying everyone in society because they don't know how to be of any kind of productivity or any kind of compassion or any kind of empathy or any kind of help to the world. They're just there because it's all they were supposed to be doing is existing. So no, my children have chores. They are raised the way I was raised, and I think my parents did a great job raising me. And we're big on education in this house, so it's like we have fun, but I teach my kids like there's a time for fun, there's a time for getting doing work and getting down to business. Speaking of business, so that's another benefit of having children. So like I said, the first thing that parents need to have when they decide to have children is a plan. Don't just willy-nilly have a kid. It's just the worst. Like, you wouldn't go into an investment blindly. You wouldn't do anything blindly. You would do your research, hopefully, and before you invest your money or whatever, you've done some research of like how this stock is going to do, or how this business is going to like reap that the return on your investment. So children are the same way. You're investing a lot of time and money into someone for like 18 years minimum. I think, like, when I look at wealthy families like the Hiltons, the Rockefellers of the world, even like a Jeff Bezos and a Bill Gates, or Steve Jobs, I look at how they raise their children. I look at how their wealth has expanded over generations. It was when I was a teenager when I first saw, I think I was watching like a biography of like the Hiltons or something. That was like the first lesson that I saw of like how generational wealth is really built on generations. Like, it doesn't happen in one generation. So like, say for me, if I purchase, say I buy land, and then the next generation of people in my family, my children, will be putting a house on that land and turning it into a farm. Then you may have the third generation, my grandchildren, coming in, and they've created a community, and so on and so forth. So that's like the real purpose to having children. It's weird that I have to even have this conversation, because I feel like people just really don't know anymore, like, why people are having kids. So that's like the real benefit, is like building something. So like, when I have my children, the first thing I did was I went in the military, because I knew, like, even if the guy doesn't stick around, like, I need to be able to take care of this child. So that was very important to me, and I planned for that, because I really knew I wanted to be a mom. I had already planned for it. Please plan. Do not just go in it willy-nilly and be like, oh, I really like this guy, let's have a kid. Like, it should not happen like that. Like, you should know in your heart, like, you want a child. The time you know that, the next thing you need to be thinking about is, how am I going to pay for this child for the next 18 years? Like, how am I going to take care of this child, keep them alive, clothe them, shelter them, feed them, like everything. Like, how am I going to do this? What kind of education are they going to have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I went in the military, and then when I got out, I went to college. I have 3 degrees, and I like worked my butt off for like the first 2 decades of my life, to the point where now I don't have to work if I don't want to, but I do have a business and I actually like working. So I will be working at minimum part-time while I'm raising my younger sons. But I also did this weird deep dive into, it's not really weird, but it is weird because it came out of I feel like it came out of nowhere, but I just kind of got this obsession with money and learning about money. And I used to read a lot of articles on like msnmoney.com. This was like back in 2000 and like 2004 or something like that, 2005. But I got really obsessed with like learning about money. And this is not conversations I had with my parents. These are not conversations you have in school. You're not taught finances like you should be taught. We just taught math. We are not taught like real about money, investing, and what to do with your money, and how to not make bad choices with your money, and just all these different financial planning. And so around the time that my eldest child was like a baby, I was studying money. I was researching it a lot. Then as he got a little older, I got into real estate, and I started researching. Like I would just watch a lot of HGTV, and so I learned that I love real estate just from like that experience. And then as I got a little older, I realized that like the average like millionaire has like 7 streams of income. So then I started moving more into like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to invent something. I saw that when people invent stuff, like they make a lot of money from that. They can make one product like a Bill Gates, and it just goes on forever and ever, and you literally making money while you sleep. So then I started learning about that the older I was getting. And so fast forward to now, like it's like I understand these things. I have my own business. I left this private sector so I can spend more time with my children. I have streams of income so I can stay home with my kids and still pay my bills. And so yeah, you have to be planning and be ready to work your butt off, like at least in the beginning, until that passive income streams are starting to come in or coming in. And then like another thing I did just to talk about finances still is like I was very strategic about what we did for daycare. I did not want to pay for daycare at any cost. It just was so expensive, especially like I didn't like American daycares. We were in Europe first, and so I kind of like fell in love with their daycares, and their daycares were based on income. So you weren't going broke paying their daycares there. Everything was like a lot more social centric. Like it wasn't so like me like it is in America. So daycare was cheaper and it was better. My child was always interacting with a daycare person there, and it was just lovely. Every time I walked in, any given time I could walk in, you could actually walk in and like look at a camera too before they even knew you were there. You could be like looking at on a monitor, see what they're doing with their baby. It's just a really great environment, and gave parents a great sense of trust in them. And every time I went there, my child was being engaged with the caregiver, and they were like playing with him. They always would change his diaper, like right before I came and got him. They would like have him leave in a clean diaper. It was just so much love there. They loved their jobs. They were amazing at their jobs, and I got spoiled from that. So when I came to America, I had a little bit of an experience with it, and I didn't like it, and I was just like, I'm over this. Like, so I just would take my kids out and just started to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's another thing. Like, okay, so you're wanting to have that flexibility of like, okay, we don't want to pay for daycare, so a parent's gonna stay home. You want to make sure you have a partner that you're with who will commit to you fully, like even if it's just like, it could be marriage, or it could be we're living together and we're going to raise this baby together. This is our baby. So you want to try to find someone who actually wants kids as well. Like make sure he's adamant about wanting kids. Like don't go with someone who says like, I don't know, like if they just seem even a little bit confused, I'm just like, no, you're not that person for me. But by then my husband at the time, he was in the military, so I was able to stay home. So that's like one way that we got out of paying the high daycare costs. Is I usually was just a stay-at-home mom, but I never stopped working my butt off. So like while I was a stay-at-home mom, I was going to college full-time, so I was getting student loans and like financial stipends to help bring money in while my husband was also working. And so yeah, and that's what we did. And then around the time my eldest child got a little older, we put him in like pre-K private school, And then he went to public school like the next year. And then I was a little stay at home some more with my second son until we moved to Virginia, and I had to go back to work because it was a little bit more expensive to live in Virginia, Northern Virginia. So he went to daycare. They both went to daycare for a short bit of time, probably like a year or so. And then my second child started school like soon after that. So he was in public school. So of course, once they were both in public school, now you don't have to pay daycare costs anymore. So we would just fix our hours around it so that we could be there with them before and after schools. A parent would be there with them because we weren't going to pay for before and after care either, even though it's nearly as expensive as like having a newborn in daycare. It's just money we didn't feel like paying. So my children never have babysitters. We don't do that. Try to avoid daycare as much as possible. And so now, like a lot of things that people complain about, they again don't realize that children grow up like they did. So of course your child, you may have to pay these astronomical prices in daycare. You may not. You may find a way around it like we did. Have a parent stay home with the kid and like do some part-time work or something, bring in money or whatever you have to do to bring in some stream, so you're not even losing just like a whole income. You still are basically technically a dual income household. And so children will turn 5, and in America school is free. So once they're 5, they're taking the little steps to school. Hopefully you're in an area where the schools are great or whatever, and your child's thriving and having a great time at school. So while they're at school, you work. Now the parent that's at home can go back to work, bring in that dual income, and so on and so forth. So that's like something a way we got around it. Another benefit to having children that I think people don't talk enough about, especially in America. America's very like self-centered, and it's not for me. Like the way I raise my children is like we're immigrants. I look at how immigrants work together and have a lot of unity to building wealth for their family as a whole. And so say like if I start a business, I have a vision that my children will join me in that business. And the way I look at children is basically like you get to multiply yourself. Like however many times you have kids, like if you have 3 kids, 2 kids, 5 kids, 4 kids, whatever, that's how many times you get to multiply yourself. So it may look different with each child, but they're going to get a part of you. Each child's going to get a part of you. And that actually can be seen as a strength, because then each child can go into different fields. So I've watched shows where, and even in real life, but I've watched shows like where they would have wealthy families, and each child, I remember this one show, it was called The Riches or something. It was like on CBS or something like that back in the day. But one of the sons was like a pastor, the other son was like a politician, the other son, like each one had these very powerful positions that could help strategically put their family in more powerful, wealthier moves throughout their city or whatever. And so that's like another benefit. Like people who don't want to have children, I feel like a lot of them can be very short-sighted. They're looking at, right now I can do this, I can do that, which I think is hilarious, because honestly a lot of parents can do those things as well. We just aren't interested in it. I feel like some people want to, but like honestly, like you don't want to do it. You like hanging out with your children, you like being with your children, it's cozy, it's comfortable, you may travel or whatever, but it's not like this like big thing that you think about, like, oh my gosh. It's kind of like if people don't have children, say they don't regret having kids. I don't regret not having all that going on 24/7, because a lot of people that have children, they waited some time before they had children. They didn't have them straight out of high school or in high school. So you usually have already done a lot of that stuff that single people with no kids are doing, child-free people are doing. You've already done it, and you're probably over it. And that's why you're biologically, like, you're just ready to settle down. That's why they call it settle down. You're ready to settle down and have a family. You're like, I've done all the traveling. I've done all the whatever. I've been all over the globe, whatever. It's like, okay, that's great, but now what, Or I've made all this money, but now what, So I like to see it as like with my life, I'm always kind of like compiling what I'm doing to build this amazing life for my children and myself and my family as a whole. And some people will be like, how do you do all the things you do? But I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm just driven and I do it. So I feel like I have it all. Like, you can have the business, you can have the kids, you can have the money, you can have the vacations. Because at some point, children get older. Sometimes they can, you can leave them with the grandparents. So grandparents exist a lot of times in families, and they want to hang out with their grandchildren, so they get them. That's when parents can go on vacations. Other times, like when the other parents, they're like, you're not married, you got a divorce, or you just like never married the person and you guys just broke up or didn't work. Now that other parent, you're co-parenting. So now that other parent has the children, that's when you can go on vacation. It's just like not really something that parents think about, and I think it's very short-sighted, because at the end of the day, anything worth having, you're going to work for it. So while you're the Dinks or the Henrys of the world, those acronyms are using for people who have dual incomes and don't have children, when they're like in their 40s or 50s, and they're like, oh, they've traveled, they've had all this wild fun all these years, what do you have to show for it? You're just home, and what are you going to just talk about your travels forever? Like, okay, that's great, good for you. And it's funny because I can talk with the best of them, because I've traveled a lot too. Before I had children, after I had children, we've had all kinds of adventures. So it's just like, okay. And so like when they're like, say like you're in your 50s, when people's kids start to leave home and go to college, they start careers, they go on to be, amazing beings of society. Say like they're doctors, lawyers, because the majority of kids, I believe, are going to go on to be great. Like they're not going to be whatever some of these people are doing out here, but just say they go on to be amazing. It's like, how awesome is that? And they come home, everyone has a family, now you've got grandkids popping up, and it's just like amazing. Like, I've always envisioned myself being in like a beautiful single family home, and it's just cozy, and the tree is up, and the lights are there, and the kids are coming home for holidays, and my grandkids are coming. Like, you cannot put a price on that. You cannot put a price on that. And it just kills me that people think, oh, I gotta, raise these kids. I don't want kids. The kids are the worst. And they just don't realize, like, kids are actually pretty self-sufficient by almost like the age of like, I would say like 7 or 8. Like my 8-year-old, like, he can cook. Not a lot. He can cook like at the microwave. But if you prepare meals over the weekend or whatever, he can heat them up for him and his little brothers. He can make sandwiches, hot dogs, whatever, in the microwave, because we're not allowing him to use the stove yet. At some age, I think around this age, at 8 in Maryland, he can actually stay home for a few hours by himself. So if you wanted to go out with friends or whatever, you could do that. Of course, I wouldn't leave him at home by himself, especially with his little brothers. I don't do that, but that is an option if you feel like your 8-year-old could handle it, which my 8-year-old could handle it. I know for a fact he could stay home and be just fine. Especially like if you go out when it's a little bit, later, he's maybe asleep or whatever. But I wouldn't recommend that, but you can do it. And then as they get older, some parents just disappear. Like, they're just gone. Like, their kids are older. I remember when I was growing up, this one girl's mom was like always traveling. She's always traveling with her boyfriend. She only had the one kid. And her daughter was always having these amazing parties at the house. But it was just her and her mom. And her mom would be gone. And she was like, hey, party at my house. And it would just be like these big parties that we would have. And yeah, her daughter was old enough. She's like 14, 15 or something at the time. So, again, like I said, I wouldn't recommend it. But it can really be done if you want to do it. So even before the child is even 18, you could already be like living your best life, or living a life of like, I don't have children, if you really wanted to. And I think it's interesting that people who don't want to have children, they try to put so much on parents. And no thanks. Like, don't try to make it worse for me because you're salty because you didn't have kids. Like, so don't be like, oh, you have to do, no, I don't have to do anything really. I could just do whatever I'm doing, and it's going to still be legal and fine, and my kids they're okay. So yeah, so that's like the benefit, is like the future I look at of just enjoying my children as adults, enjoying my grandchildren, maybe being around long enough to see the great grands, who knows. I envision those things, and that's what makes it so worth it. All of it makes it worth it. It's about family. and building a family. And then, I mean, that's what I think is so cool about having children. And worst case scenario, like your child grows up and they don't do any of these things, but you got to spend time with that child. You got to have this child or children with you over these years, and it's just such a special bond. But there are so many more benefits than what I see online, and I actually think it's just a travesty. Like I'm actually feeling like, wow, America really does not like children, because I feel like when I read articles, all they do is promote like the single couples. America is very shallow. America is very superficial. They focus so much on youth and people who don't have children. And I think a lot of that is because they want to make it seem glamorous, because they want you spending. They want you to be a consumer for the rest of your life. And they just promote like you traveling and eating out, dining out and buying stuff and da 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 da. And okay, I mean, honestly, like most parents are doing the same things. We really are. So I just feel like it's sad that we live in a country that does not value children and the elderly either. When you get a certain age, or like whether you put you out to pasture, like you have pasture. They want to put you out to pasture like you have no more worth or value, and it's just not true. I mean, grandparents they have such a wealth of information. Like there's so many things I learned from my grandmother and my grandfather that my parents would have never been able to teach me. They just didn't have the skill set or the experience. And I'm grateful for like how much time I got to spend with my grandmother, my grandfather, and my grandparents. Like it was just golden and amazing. I mean, these are people who love you. They are your grandparents. So it's just, everything's just so special. And that's all I wanted to say as far as like why I feel like some of the benefits of having children are those things. Of course, the list is a lot longer than that, but I didn't want to make this video too long, and I'll probably do like a part 2 to talk about, just further benefits of having children. And one thing I did just read, that even though they're promoting like the Henrys, they say they have like more in savings, I think, but couples with children actually make more money than people who don't have kids. And I can basically attest to that, because I feel like when you have children, you become more responsible, because you're responsible for like another human being's entire life is in your hands, and you are wanting to build more wealth so you can give your child a comfortable life. Most parents, I think, for the most part, want their kids to have a life better than theirs, better than they had it. And not to say that we grew up in poverty or our lives are awful, but I think it's like an innate, just natural feeling to want to give your child more and give them the best opportunities, the best life that you can afford them. And so with that comes the motivation to work hard, So like when I have, and the one example I can give is like when I had my oldest child, I was like, I need to get back in college. I mean, it's like I literally felt like I need to buckle down and get serious about life now. Like it's not just me anymore. And so it definitely put a battery in my back. Like I was like going. I mean, the motivation, the drive, the energy was just on 1 million. So that's something to think about, And the articles that I was reading, they were saying like the reason why they say that the Henrys and the Dinks are like winning, not only because they can travel and do that whenever they feel like it, I guess, which is, I think, is kind of like a lie, to be honest, because in America you don't really get a lot of leave. So I'm like, what are these jobs they're having where they're just having all this leave? Because I don't know where are they, because most Americans will tell you like they're lucky if they get 2 weeks, and a lot of times they're using the little time they have to like get away from the office because it's so stressful. But everyone's like glamorous, and if they want to talk about glamorizing parenting, you're glamorizing child-free life, because it's really not all it's cracked up to be. People, just because you don't have kids doesn't mean you get to work less than others. Like you're gonna have the same amount of vacation time as the other person. You're gonna be let go from jobs like other people. So it's not that great, but they like to glamorize it because it's spending money and putting more money in the economy, and you're just a consumer to them. They're not thinking about you as a person and your family and your race succeeding in the world and surviving. And another thing I think is one thing I think is really bad about people who don't have children, and I also realize, is that the buck stops with you. Like someone gave a good description of this, but they were like, imagine like you having like ancestors going back hundreds of thousands of years and years, like all these hundreds of thousands of years, and you're the one that ended it. Like, I don't want that on my conscience. Like, I did my part to continue the bloodline. Whatever else happens from here, I have no control over that. So, yeah. But, yeah, I'm really into, like, Ancestry.com. I build my family tree for my family. And you definitely can, I can see that almost, like that visual of people who just didn't even try to have a child, at least. And try their hand at parenting. So it's like you just see that tree where that line just stops with that person. While if their siblings had kids, or like while other people had kids, like the lines just continue on. Just continues on and on and on, and it multiplies. So like, say like for me, I brought 5 people into this world. So it's like my tree will have my 5 sons underneath me, and then they're gonna have like their wives and who they had children, and that's all my grandchildren. So it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me. So those are my reasons. I just wanted to make this video because I just feel like our culture has created such a disgusting, divisive culture, but very disgusting about their attitudes around family, children, and it's really sad. Because I can tell you, like, a lot of people who are not from America, they don't think like Americans do. I would say maybe the white countries are all like on a line as far as like we don't do kids. Like their countries are all suffering. The populations are decreasing and declining in those types of countries. But like the brown countries, like African countries, even like India, countries in India, like whenever I run across those people in Walmart or different places while I'm out and about, they always tell me I'm blessed when they see all my children. Like, they could be Ethiopian, whichever country they're from. If they're not from America or like a predominantly white country, they always just know. And they usually have a good amount of kids themselves. So it's like this camaraderie, like we get it, like we're doing something amazing for the world. And they just always say, you're very blessed. You're very blessed. And I'm like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate hearing that, because I don't hear that much from Americans. They treat having kids like the plague. Like, oh my gosh, you're having another one? I mean, they act like they're going to raise a kid. And yeah, so that's all I have for now, everyone. As usual, make sure to leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe if you like this video, if you found some value out of it. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.